What are the three key elements of a campaign strategy? I'm going to answer that question better than any other place you could look for an answer to that question. I'm going to ask that you stay with me until the end of this video, because if you are trying to devise a strategy, this information is invaluable to you. There are three things we're going to cover in this video, and they all are important. Your message, your targeting, and your execution. All are essential to the prosecution and execution of a campaign strategy. We will start with the message. If you're running in a campaign, you are asking voters to vote for you. If you're starting out as a first-time candidate, or it's been a while since you've run before, you can pretty much assume that voters may not have a good idea of who you are, or they may be fuzzy about certain things that you stand for. And it's incumbent upon you to give them some information that will help them make an informed choice when they fill out their ballot. Now, you as a political candidate are simply a means to an end. It is through you that voters get something they want, which makes you essentially nothing more than a commodity. They can't buy it, but they can vote for it. So the first and most important element of your campaign message is what you are going to do for the people who live in your jurisdiction. How you are going to improve their quality of life, or cut their taxes, or invent a program to serve an underserved population. The problems you are going to fix, the wrong that you are going to right, the injustice that you are going to correct, the policy issue that you are going to alter that will make their lives more comfortable, perhaps reduce their cost of living, to ease some sort of pain that they are living with, that they would like it to go away. That is what you have to offer voters if you want them to be interested in you. Now, there are four other questions you're going to have to answer for voters in a political campaign. They're going to be curious. If they like your offer, they are going to be interested in voting for you, but they need to know that you're not a clown, that you got your feet on the ground, that you've done certain things in your life that demonstrate that you know how to handle responsibilities. Tell them if you've raised a family, if you've held a job, if you've written a book, something useful that you've done for an organization in your community that proves your fidelity to the people who live there. Tell them a little bit about what you've done so they know that you're not just a clown seeking attention. The second thing that they want to know about you is a little bit about your moral code. Just so they know that you share some of the same values that they do. Proof that you care about veterans, proof that you care about kids, proof that you care about families, proof that you care about the same things they do. If you leave that blank in your campaign message, you're giving your opponent an opportunity to paint your moral code as out of sync with those of the voters. Item number 4, that's part of your political campaign message, is what can you tell voters that makes them comfortable with trusting you to do the right thing when they are not looking? Is there something in your past, some experience you've had, something you saw or heard that demonstrates to them your commitment to solving a problem that affects the way they live? And the fifth element of a campaign message is what makes you better than your opponent? What can you tell voters that crystallizes this election as a difference between black and white, pepper and salt, good and evil, that makes the choice in this election crystal clear? What are you going to do for voters? What makes you qualified? What's your moral code? Why should they trust you? What makes you better than your opponent? That is the first element of putting this together, and it has to be right. That's the content. Now, what about the targeting? Well, can't be all things to all people in a campaign. You got to kind of pick and choose of what piece of this electorate that you can convince to vote for you, and aim your resources toward those who are either persuadable or likely to vote for you if you make a concerted effort to get them to the polls. How do you target? Well, you look at the geography of your jurisdiction. If you have a multi-county jurisdiction, look at the counties and their past voting patterns to see where you're likely to do well and where you are not likely to do well. Look at voters based upon their demographics, their age, their income, whether they rent or own, their property tax burden, their net worth, whether they have high-income jobs or low-income jobs, whether they're white-collar employees or blue-collar employees, whether they've graduated for college or just graduated from high school. All of these things affect the way people behave in the voting booth. And it's incumbent upon you to slice and dice this electorate so that you come up with a demographic profile of the kind of voters who are likely to be with you if you give them a compelling argument, and the kind of voters who are going to vote for you if you get them to the polls. You have to direct all of the resources your campaign has to spend to those things, just enough voters so that you get to 51.1% in an election. Otherwise, the math doesn't work. So we've talked about your message, we've talked about your targeting. Now let's talk about your execution. How do you get this information to the voters? Here's the thing. Voters get their political information from a very fragmented source, meaning some get it from newspapers, some get it from cable TV, some get it from social media, some don't get any of it at all because they're completely disengaged in what's going on in the world around them. Those people are generally people living paycheck to paycheck, where all they ever do is get up and go to work trying to eke out a living. So all of these people you do have to reach one way or the other. So let's start with a key tool in the arsenal of anybody engaged in modern day politics. It is social media. It is everywhere. I don't know a single soul anymore that doesn't occasionally look at social media of some kind, whether it's TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, even Twitter. Given that they get their information from many, many, many different sources, and you're trying to get information to them, well, it kind of dictates that you have to meet them where they are, both in the source of their news and their issue concerns. So if you have younger voters, your best way to reach them is TikTok right now. If you have middle-aged voters, one of your best mediums right now is YouTube, especially if they're engaged in what's going on. Facebook reaches an older demographic. Instagram has its own audience. It spans all age groups, but there are certain kind of people who pay attention to Instagram and a certain kind who do not. It doesn't mean they're not on social media, but they may be using something else to get their political information. There are people who still look at Twitter or X or whatever it's called in this day and age. They look at it for breaking news. They look at it to follow certain people that we call opinion leaders. And I will say this, if you can get an opinion leader who has a following in your community, figure out ways to get the notice of that opinion leader so that he or she says something nice about you in a tweet in your jurisdiction. There are other inexpensive ways to do this, but they tend to be kind of labor intensive. Going door to door. In a relatively small jurisdiction, that would be a jurisdiction with fewer than 8,000 households. Door to door is a key tool because in a jurisdiction that small, if they've met you at their door, Their chances of voting for you increase exponentially because you took the time to knock on their door and listen to what they have to say. So going door to door with a small handout is a great way to disseminate your message. And I would add that when you've met somebody at the door who likes what you have to say, when you get home that night, pen them a little handwritten thank you note. Thank them for the conversation. It return. Give them your cell phone number. It pays dividends when you do that because it convinces them that you really do care about the person that they are. Other inexpensive ways to reach people, if you get their email address, you can email them. If you have their cell phone number, you can text them. If you have their address, you can send them mail. These are inexpensive ways to build a grassroots organization. Frankly, I have seen a lot of people succeed using just these tools in a political campaign because they did them well and they did them thoroughly, and it made all the difference in the world. Another means of disseminating information, of course, is paid advertising. And there are three buckets in this paid advertising thing that do cost real money. They are television. There are 4 kinds of TV: commercial, there is cable television networks, there is CTV, which is another word for connected TV that's connected to the cable system that you subscribe to. And then there are a lot of people who are not connected to cable TV anymore, and that's what we call OTT, over-the-top television. You can place digital advertising on that and advertise on things that they're watching on their computer. There is radio. In certain communities, there are still dominant radio stations with high listenership that covers news and weather. In those communities, that is the main source of news. You can buy ads on most radio stations for 60 seconds at a time. Put your disclaimer on it. Tell people what you're about, what you're fighting for, what makes you better than your opponent. Universal tool in this line of business is also what we call persuasion mail. Lots of candidates use it because they can reach very targeted households with the mail. It enables them to design a piece, drop it at the post office, knowing that everybody on their list is going to get that same piece of mail at around the same time. And believe it or not, people do look at it if you design it well. So you got to make your mail piece easy to read with some nice looking pictures, interesting headlines so that they can glance at the piece and get the point of what you were trying to say, and some extra copy if they care to read the whole thing. Those are some of the secrets of direct mail for another video. But those are the 3 paid ways to disseminate a message to an electorate that needs to hear it. Now, I have a little gift for you. There's a link to another video underneath this one. It's called How to Run for Office, 7 Essential Steps. And while this is fresh in your mind, I'm going to suggest that you go there and watch it right now. Keep a pencil handy because you're going to want to take notes when you watch it.